The blind bride was tricked into marrying a millionaire CEO, but he gave her back light and freedom. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain was falling against the glass walls of a Manhattan penthouse, tapping like impatient fingers. Inside, the city's lights flickered across a polished marble table where two signatures were waiting to be written. One belonged to Adam Lawrence, the 32-year-old CEO of Helios Corporation, a man once called the golden boy of tech. Now the center of a scandal. The other line was blank. It was waiting for her name. "This is not a marriage, Adam," said his attorney, sliding the folder across the table. "It is damage control. You marry a blind girl from the charity program. The press will call it redemption." Adam's jaw tightened. "You make it sound like she is a product." "She is a symbol," the lawyer replied. "You need sympathy, not another lawsuit. One wedding photo, 6 months together, and Helios survives." Adam exhaled through his teeth, his reflection fractured by the city lights. For years, he had built his empire on precision, not pity. But now one viral headline, one tearful interview from an ex-girlfriend claiming he bought her silence, and everything was crumbling. The board wanted a savior story. They wanted him humble, human, healed. And so came Elena Moore. She had been born blind, 24 years old, raised in a state home. A local charity, funded by Helios, had sponsored her art therapy classes. She thought she was being invited to a humanitarian partnership. She had no idea she was the face of a lie. Adam turned the contract slowly. Clause 4, no physical intimacy, separate rooms. Clause 5, 6 months duration, confidentiality mandatory. Clause 6, a donation to the Vision Foundation upon completion. He rubbed the back of his neck. What if she says no? The lawyer smiled without warmth. She already agreed. She believes this is about love. What? Lightning flashed across the skyline, white and merciless. For a second, Adam saw his own reflection double, one half in shadow, one in light. He reached for the pen. His hand trembled. Then he signed. Across the city, in a small apartment run by the charity, Elena was tracing the outline of her sketchboard with gentle fingers. The picture she was shaping was of sunlight rays spreading from a single point, a thing she had never seen but always imagined. Her counselor's voice broke the silence. "Elena, are you nervous? Tomorrow is the interview." She smiled faintly. "I do not even know what he looks like, but he sounds kind. Maybe this is what trust feels like." The counselor hesitated, then said softly, "Remember, people are not always what they seem." Elena laughed, a soft, melodic sound that made the old room warmer. "Neither am I. They see blindness, but I see more than most." Back in the penthouse, Adam stared out at the storm. He whispered to no one, "What kind of man buys a wife to fix his image?" The city offered no answer, only the pulse of thunder and the glow of red taillights far below. The following morning, 2 cars moved through the rain in opposite directions, one toward the courthouse, one toward the charity center. They would meet in 24 hours, each believing something completely different. One saw a chance for redemption, the other, a chance for love. Neither knew that this contract would test the meaning of light, freedom, and truth more than either had ever imagined. The morning after the storm, the city woke up to headlines screaming about Helios Corporation's redemption plan. But only a few people knew what that plan truly meant. At a quiet rehabilitation center on the east side of Manhattan, Elena Moore sat on a small couch with her white cane folded beside her. She could feel the warmth of sunlight through the glass window even if she could not see it. A staff member entered with a soft tone in her voice. "Elena, the Helios Foundation has approved your meeting," she said. "They are sending a car to pick you up at noon. The CEO himself wants to meet you in person." Elena's heart raced. "The CEO?" she repeated, her voice trembling between disbelief and excitement. She had read articles about Adam Lawrence. They called him brilliant, ruthless, and magnetic. But none of those words meant anything to her. What mattered was that Helios had promised to fund a new vision therapy program, and she wanted to be part of it. By the time the car arrived, rain had given way to clear skies. The driver opened the door, guiding her gently inside. The scent of leather and faint cologne filled the car. She folded her hands tightly in her lap, rehearsing what she might say. "Thank you for believing in people like me," she whispered to herself. Across town, Adam was already standing inside the Helios lobby, adjusting his cufflinks. The board's statement had gone public, declaring his marriage to Elena Moore, a blind artist and humanitarian advocate. The photo they used had been taken from her charity profile, her face turned slightly toward the light, smiling without knowing someone had captured it. He hated the lie but needed the illusion. One meeting, he muttered. "Sign the papers, take the photos, move on." When Elena entered, the air seemed to pause. Her steps were slow, cautious, graceful. She extended her hand toward the sound of his breathing. "Mr. Lawrence?" Her voice was soft but steady. Adam hesitated before shaking her hand. Her fingers were cool, her grip light yet sure. "Please, call me Adam," he said. They sat across from each other in the glass-walled conference room. A notary and two assistants watched silently. On the table lay a document sealed with gold edges. "This contract," Adam began carefully, "is a partnership between us. It will last for 6 months. During that time, you will attend public events as my wife. In return, Helios will fully fund your art and rehabilitation foundation." Elena's brow furrowed. "Partnership," she repeated. "That sounds professional." "It is," he said quickly. "There are rules. You will have your own space. Nothing personal, just appearances." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a quiet voice that surprised even herself, she asked, "And what do you get out of it?" Adam froze. "A cleaner image," he admitted. "Maybe a chance to fix what I broke." The room grew still. She reached forward, fingertips brushing the paper. "I cannot see the fine print," she said softly, "but I can hear hesitation in your voice. You sound like a man who wants to be forgiven." Quote. He looked at her then not as a tool for redemption, but as a person who somehow saw him more clearly than anyone else had. She signed her name carefully, the pen trembling slightly in her hand. "Thank you, Miss Moore," the notary said. "It is Mrs. Lawrence now," Elena corrected gently. And for the first time since the idea began, Adam's chest tightened. When she stood, he noticed the pendant around her neck, a small silver charm engraved with the words, "Let there be light." You quote. It was the same phrase etched inside his wedding ring. He did not know whether to call it coincidence or destiny, but as she smiled faintly toward the sound of his silence, he realized the lie had already started to feel dangerously close to the truth. Outside the window, the New York skyline shimmered under the noon sun, reflecting on the glass like fragments of truth waiting to break through the facade. The ceremony took place that same afternoon inside a private courthouse tucked between two tall buildings in downtown Manhattan. The walls smelled faintly of paper and disinfectant, and the air conditioning hummed louder than the priest's voice. There were no flowers, no music, no friends, only 2 signatures, 2 rings, and a silence that felt heavier than the marble floor beneath their feet. Elena stood beside Adam, her white cane folded neatly in her hand. Her pale dress brushed against her ankles, and though she could not see the room, she could sense the indifference around her. "Do you, Adam Lawrence, take Elena Moore to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the officiant asked. Adam cleared his throat. "I do." "And do you, Elena Moore, take Adam Lawrence to be your husband?" "I do," she said softly, her voice trembling like a candle flame. When the ceremony ended, the notary stamped the papers, and it was done. A contract sealed under the name of love. Outside, flashes exploded. A handful of photographers had somehow discovered their location. Adam cursed under his breath. "Get her in the car," he ordered his assistant. Elena heard the panic in his tone. "It is all right," she said quietly. "They cannot take anything from me I have not already lost." Her words lingered in his mind long after the car doors shut. By evening, they arrived at his penthouse. The elevator opened to a wall of glass, revealing the New York skyline glowing like molten gold. Elena tilted her head, sensing the light through her skin. "So this is your world," she said. He nodded, forgetting for a moment that she could not see. "Yes. It is just glass and noise." He showed her to a room at the end of the hall, spacious, simple, untouched. "This will be yours," he said. "You will have privacy. If you need anything, there is a call button by the bed." Elena smiled faintly. "And where will you be?" "Everywhere else," he replied. Later that night, she unpacked her few belongings: a folded sketch pad, a set of graphite pencils, and a small audio player. She turned it on and listened to the sound of waves, her favorite recording from an art therapy session. The rhythm calmed her heartbeat. In his study, Adam stared at the contract once again. The ink had barely dried, yet it already felt like a confession. He rubbed his temples. 6 months, he muttered. Just 6 months. But when he closed his eyes, he heard her voice repeating, "They cannot take anything from me I have not already lost." He wondered what that meant, what had been taken from her before all this began. The next morning, their first public appearance awaited them. Elena wore a soft ivory dress, her hair pinned neatly by one of the assistants. Adam stood beside her, his expression composed but unreadable. Reporters called out questions, their cameras flashing like lightning. "Elena, how did you meet Mr. Lawrence?" She smiled toward the voices. "We met through his foundation. Sometimes kindness does not need eyes to recognize itself." The crowd murmured. Adam froze for a moment, then placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, an instinctive gesture that caught even him off guard. When they returned to the car, she turned her head slightly toward him. "You did not have to touch me like that," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. "It just felt right." Goo. The silence between them stretched, filled with questions neither dared to ask. As the car rolled through the city, Elena whispered, "There is something strange about this, Adam. Everyone sees a perfect story. But I feel something else." He looked at her, wondering if she could somehow sense the lie that tied them together. "And if you were in her place, would you sign such a marriage contract? Would you trust a stranger who offers light but hides the truth behind it?" Days turned into weeks, and the rhythm of their arrangement settled like quiet waves against glass. Every morning, the staff left breakfast trays at 2 different tables. Every evening, the housekeeper prepared dinner for 2 people who rarely spoke across the same room. Adam buried himself in meetings, rebuilding Helios's public image. Elena, left to her own world of sound and scent, began exploring the penthouse by touch. She counted the steps from her room to the piano, from the piano to the balcony, from the balcony to the kitchen. Her fingertips learned what her eyes could not: edges, textures, warmth. She had made a rule for herself: never ask for help. One afternoon, Adam returned early from a board meeting. He stopped at the doorway, watching her trace the outline of the window frame. The sunset poured through the glass, washing her face in gold. "You are not supposed to stand that close to the edge," he said. Elena smiled, still facing the window. "I can hear where the world ends, Adam. The air changes when there is nothing left to stop it." He stepped closer, unsure why her words made his chest tighten. "Does it scare you?" "No," she said simply. "Darkness stopped scaring me a long time ago." That night, Adam could not sleep. He walked into the kitchen and found her sitting at the counter, listening to the faint sound of city sirens through the open window. She was sketching on a large tactile board, each stroke guided by memory rather than sight. "What are you drawing?" he asked quietly. "Something I have never seen," she answered. "The sky." He leaned over her shoulder, his cologne mingling with the scent of her shampoo. The paper showed a swirl of raised lines, each curve representing a feeling rather than an image. "It looks beautiful," he said. She laughed softly. "You are saying that because you can see it." "No," he replied, surprising himself. "Because I can feel it." Their eyes, or rather their hearts, met in that brief stillness. Then she said something he would remember for a long time. "You can lie to the world, Adam, but not to the sound of your own voice." Calm note. He looked away, guilt flashing through his expression before he could hide it. The next day, a stylist arrived with racks of designer dresses. "Mr. Lawrence asked me to help prepare you for the gala," the woman chirped. "Gala?" Elena asked. "It is a charity event for the Helios Vision program," the stylist explained. "You are the guest of honor." Elena froze. "Guest of honor? I did not even know I was attending." When Adam came home that evening, she was waiting for him. "You could have told me," she said calmly. He set down his briefcase. "It was a surprise. It will help the foundation." "It will help your foundation," she corrected. "There is a difference." He hesitated, then said, "You will look stunning, Elena. The world will see what real strength looks like." She turned her head toward his voice. "They will see what you want them to see." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. There were no right words. That night, as the city lights painted shadows across the floor, Adam stood alone on the balcony. The sound of her laughter from down the hall floated faintly through the air, a melody that felt both distant and familiar. For the first time, he wondered if the contract that had saved his reputation might destroy something far more valuable, his chance to know her without the mask of pity or pride. And somewhere deep inside that question, something in him began to shift. The gala arrived faster than either of them expected. By 7 o'clock, the Helios Grand Ballroom glowed beneath a ceiling of crystal lights. Photographers lined the carpet, flashes sparking like fireworks. It was supposed to be the night that restored Adam Lawrence's image, but he had not planned on how much it would change him. In her private suite upstairs, Elena stood near a mirror she could not see. The stylist's hands fluttered around her, fixing strands of hair and smoothing the silk folds of her silver dress. The fabric shimmered when it caught the light, a quiet echo of the words engraved inside her husband's wedding ring. "Are you nervous?" the stylist asked kindly. Elena smiled. "You cannot be nervous when you cannot see the eyes staring at you." Downstairs, Adam checked his reflection for the 5th time. His tie felt too tight, his confidence too practiced. He glanced at the contract folded in his wallet, its edges worn. "Just one night," he murmured. "Smile for the cameras, shake a few hands, and keep her safe." When she entered the ballroom, every conversation stopped. Elena walked slowly, guided by the sound of the orchestra. Her hand rested lightly on Adam's arm. She could feel the tension in his muscles, the rhythm of his breath. He leaned toward her. "You look," his voice caught. "You look like light itself." She tilted her head. "Careful, Adam. People might think you mean it." Reporters crowded near the stage. "Mr. Lawrence! Mrs. Lawrence! Over here, please!" They posed together, the flashbulbs firing like summer lightning. To everyone watching, they looked perfect, his firm grip on her waist. Her calm smile lifted toward the unseen crowd. But beneath the glitter, the silence between them said everything. When the speeches began, Adam took the microphone. His words flowed smoothly, polished by 1,000 rehearsals. Helios Vision Program exists to remind us that innovation means nothing without humanity. Tonight, we celebrate those who see the world in ways we cannot. Then he turned to Elena. "And no one embodies that better than my wife." Applause thundered. Elena stepped forward, the microphone trembling slightly in her hand. She smiled in the direction of the sound. "I cannot see your faces," she said softly, "but I can feel your energy. I was told this evening is about light. But light is not only something you see, it is something you give." The room fell silent. Even the cameras stopped clicking. She continued, "When I met Adam, I thought he was helping me. Maybe he was. But I learned something sometimes. The one who believes he is the rescuer is the one who needs saving most." A ripple of murmurs crossed the audience. Adam's breath caught. He was not sure if she had meant it as praise or confession. She turned her face toward where she imagined him standing. "To everyone who has ever lived in darkness, do not wait for someone to turn on the light. Become it yourself." Applause roared, genuine and overwhelming. For a moment, Adam felt proud, then suddenly exposed. She had spoken truth inside a room built on lies. After the event, as they walked toward the waiting car, Elena touched his sleeve. "You did not like what I said, did you?" He hesitated. "I do not know what I felt." "It was honest," she said. "Sometimes honesty is the only thing that does not need sight." He looked at her, realizing she was more than the symbol he had used. She was becoming his mirror, showing him what kind of man he really was. That night, as the car drove through the glittering city, Adam loosened his tie and whispered under his breath, "Maybe light hurts before it heals." Beside him, Elena smiled faintly, as if she could hear the thought he was too afraid to say aloud. After the gala, the city refused to sleep. Helicopters droned above the skyline, and news anchors repeated her speech across every screen. "The blind wife of Adam Lawrence stole the spotlight tonight," they said. Her words moved the room to silence. Inside the penthouse, Adam poured himself a glass of scotch and stared at the reflection of the city in the window. He had been praised before, called a visionary, a genius, a man with the Midas touch. Yet none of those titles felt as heavy as the silence that now surrounded him. He replayed her words again in his mind. Sometimes, the one who believes he is the rescuer is the one who needs saving most. He wanted to believe she did not mean him, but deep down, he knew she did. Elena was in her room, sitting on the edge of her bed, her fingers tracing the pendant around her neck. The silver charm, engraved with the words, "Let there be light," caught the faintest echo of the moon. She could hear Adam's footsteps pacing the hall. She could always hear him before he spoke. Finally, the door creaked open. "Elena?" His voice was careful, uncertain. "I am awake," she said softly. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. She turned her face toward his voice. "Regret what?" "Signing the contract, marrying me, living here." Elena thought for a long moment before answering. "Regret is a luxury for people who had choices, Adam. I never did." Quote. He winced, setting the glass on the table. "That is not fair. You could have said no." "You could have told me the truth," she replied. The words hit him harder than he expected. He sat across from her, his elbows resting on his knees. "You are right," he admitted quietly. "I lied. I told myself it was business, but it was fear. I was afraid of losing everything." Elena smiled faintly. "You did not lose everything. You just lost what was fake." For a while, neither spoke. The air hummed with the distant sound of sirens and city traffic. Then she stood, reaching for the door. "I need air." Adam followed her to the rooftop. The night breeze was cold, carrying the faint scent of rain and steel. The city stretched out before them, endless and alive. Elena leaned against the railing, tilting her head toward the sound of the wind. "When I was a little girl," she said, "I used to imagine what stars looked like. I thought they were holes in the dark places where the world forgot to close the curtain." He looked at her, his throat tight. "They are not holes, Elena. They are fire. Tiny, burning pieces of forever." She smiled. "Then maybe darkness is just the space between what still burns." For a long moment he said nothing. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, "You deserve to see them." She turned toward him. "What do you mean?" He handed her a folder. Inside was a form from Street, Vincent Medical Research Center. "They are testing a new retinal surgery," he explained. "Your case fits the criteria. I already spoke to the doctors." Elena's hands trembled as she touched the papers. "You did this for me?" He nodded. "Maybe I am still trying to fix things. Maybe I just want you to have the choice you never had." She inhaled slowly, overwhelmed. "You are giving me light, Adam." He looked at her, his eyes unsteady. "No, Elena. I am just returning what the world took from you." She smiled through the mist of her tears. Her face tilted toward the glow of the city. "Do you believe love can grow from lies, Adam?" she asked quietly. "Or does honesty have to come first?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The wind carried her question into the night, one that neither of them was ready to answer. The rooftop moment lingered between them like a fragile truth. For the first time, Adam had given something not as a CEO, but as a man who cared. Yet as the days passed, what began as light soon turned into a storm neither of them could stop. The news leaked before the surgery was even approved. Someone inside Helios had sent the story to the press. Billionaire CEO uses blind wife for PR redemption. By morning, every outlet had her name and face. The headlines were cruel. When Adam entered his office that day, his phone was exploding with calls. "We can spin this," his publicist insisted. "Say the marriage was an experimental project for social awareness." "Enough," he said sharply, slamming the phone down. "This is not a campaign." The publicist froze. "Then what is it, Adam? Because to the world it looks exactly like one." He said nothing. He just walked out, ignoring the stares that followed him. Across the city, Elena was sitting in her therapist's office, hands trembling around a cup of tea. The article lay open on the table beside her, her photograph printed under the headline. "Is it true?" the counselor asked softly. Elena's voice was barely audible. "I do not know anymore. I thought I was part of something real. Maybe I was just too blind to see what it really was." When Adam arrived home that night, the penthouse was dark. The lights were off, the air quiet. Elena was standing near the balcony, her back turned toward him. "Elena," he said carefully. She did not move. "Is it true?" He hesitated. "I can explain." "That means yes," she said. "You lied to me. I never meant for you to find out like this." She turned toward the sound of his voice, tears shining in her unseeing eyes. "You never meant for me to find out at all." He stepped forward. "It started as a lie, yes, but it is not anymore." She shook her head. "You bought me, Adam. Maybe not with money, but with pity. And I accepted it because I wanted to believe someone could see me for who I am." Quote. His throat tightened. "You are not a project. You never were." "Then what am I?" she demanded. "A headline? A photo op? A chance for you to prove to the world that you still have a heart?" The silence that followed was louder than shouting. Adam could not answer. The truth was too heavy. She stepped closer, her voice trembling but clear. "You cannot use kindness as currency. It does not buy forgiveness. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Elena, please. Do not, she whispered. Do not make it harder than it already is. She took off her wedding ring and placed it on the table. I wanted to believe in light, Adam, but all I found was your shadow. Then she turned and walked out of the room, her footsteps echoing down the hallway like the slow breaking of glass. Adam stood there, motionless. The city outside glittered with 1,000 lights, but none of them reached him. By morning, she was gone. The staff said she had packed a small suitcase and left before dawn. No forwarding address, no message, only a single note on the kitchen counter. It said, "You gave me a contract, not a choice, so now I am choosing for myself." He read it again and again until the words blurred. For the first time in his life, Adam Lawrence realized that power could not control everything, not the press, not love, not forgiveness. And as the sun rose over the skyline, he whispered to the empty apartment, "Maybe this is what losing everything truly feels like." Sometimes it takes darkness to understand the value of light. But when the light walks away, can a man ever earn it back? For 3 days, Adam did not leave the penthouse. The blinds stayed closed, the phones unanswered. Every message from the Helios board demanded a response, but he had nothing left to say. The company was surviving, but he was not. Every corner of the apartment reminded him of her voice, her laughter, the echo of her footsteps on the marble floor. When he finally looked at himself in the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back. The perfect suit was gone. His eyes were tired, his hair disheveled. Somewhere along the way, he had become the thing he swore he would never be: soulless. Then came a small envelope slipped under his door. No name, no return address, only his initials typed neatly on the front. Inside was a flyer for a benefit concert hosted by the Vision Reborn Foundation. The event was scheduled for that evening at St. Vincent Medical Center. At the bottom, in soft handwriting, were 4 words: "Let there be light." Adam's heart pounded. He knew that handwriting. He arrived at the hospital as the sun began to set, turning the glass building into a mirror of gold. Inside, the lobby was filled with doctors, patients, children holding small candles. At the center of it all stood Elena. She looked different now, stronger. Her hair framed her face, and her hands no longer searched the air for direction. She was holding a white cane, but she stood with quiet confidence, as if she could already sense the world taking shape again. When she heard the sound of his footsteps, she turned slightly. "Adam," she said softly. He froze. "How did you know it was me?" "I would know your silence anywhere," she said with a faint smile. He swallowed hard. "You are here? For the surgery?" She nodded. The foundation offered to sponsor it. A donor insisted on covering the costs anonymously. "I think we both know who that was." He lowered his gaze. "It was never about money, Elena. I just wanted you to have the chance to see again." She stepped closer. "You wanted to fix what you broke, but some things are not fixed, Adam. They are transformed." He nodded slowly. "Then let this be transformation." He handed her a small envelope. Inside was the official deed of transfer Helios's new charitable division, entirely in her name. Elena's breath caught. "You are giving this to me? It is yours. The Vision Reborn Foundation should belong to the one who truly believes in it." Her fingers brushed the paper, then his hand. "Why are you doing this?" He met her gaze even though she could not yet meet his. "Because love is not about ownership. It is about giving someone back their freedom." Quote. For a moment, she could not speak. The air between them felt fragile, full of everything left unsaid. "Adam," she whispered finally, "you do not need to save me." He smiled sadly. "I know, but maybe I need to save myself." The surgeon called her name. She turned toward the voice, holding the pendant at her neck. "Let there be light," she murmured again, the same words she had whispered on the day they met. As she was led down the hallway, Adam stood motionless, watching until the door closed behind her. Every sound faded except the slow, rhythmic beeping of the monitors inside. Hours passed. He waited through the night, pacing the corridor, drinking coffee gone cold. When the doctor finally emerged at dawn, his voice was calm. "The surgery went well. It will take time, but there is hope." Adam felt the weight lift from his chest. He pressed his hands together, whispering, "Thank you." Quote. He stepped quietly into her room. Elena lay sleeping, her eyes covered with soft bandages. He took her hand and said softly, "You gave me light long before you ever saw it." Outside, the first sunlight broke through the clouds, painting the sterile walls in gold. For the first time, Adam did not feel the need to control it. He simply stood there, letting the light return just as she had promised. Spring came early that year. The city that once looked gray now shimmered under soft sunlight, as if every window reflected a second chance. Inside the Vision Reborn Foundation, laughter filled the air. Children ran down the corridors, volunteers greeted visitors, and the walls displayed new art created by people who had once lived in darkness. Elena Moore sat in her office near the main entrance, reviewing a list of new scholarship recipients. Her eyes still adjusted slowly to bright light, but she could see shapes, colors, faces. Every glimpse was a miracle. She often stopped mid-sentence, just to close her eyes and whisper, "Thank you." When the door opened, she looked up. Adam Lawrence stood there, dressed simply in a white shirt and gray coat. He looked different, calmer, humbler, lighter. "Good morning, Mrs. Moore," he said with a quiet smile. She laughed softly. "I thought I told you not to call me that. It is still legally Mrs. Lawrence." He shrugged. "Maybe not for long. You own this place now. You are far more important than me." She motioned for him to sit. "You know, I tried to hate you," she said, "for lying, for turning my life into a performance. But then I remembered you gave me back my sight." Adam shook his head. "No, Elena, you earned it. I just opened a door. You walked through it." They sat in silence for a moment, the sunlight spreading between them like a bridge. Then he placed a small box on the desk. Inside was the silver ring she had left behind months ago. The engraving caught the light. "Let there be light." "I kept it," he said. "Not because I thought you would come back, but because I needed to remember what love looks like when it is honest." Elena touched the ring gently. "It is strange," she whispered. "When I could not see, I thought love was something you felt. Now that I can, I realize it is something you build." He smiled. "Then let me help build it again. No contracts, no cameras, just us." Her eyes shimmered. "And what makes you think I would say yes this time?" He exhaled, nervous for once. "Because now I know love is not a headline. It is a promise you keep when no one is watching." Elena rose slowly, stepping closer until she could see his face clearly, the warmth in his eyes, the quiet regret that never left. She smiled through tears. "Then promise me one thing. Never turn off the light again." "Oh, I will not," he said, his voice breaking slightly. She slipped the ring back on her finger, not as a symbol of a contract but of choice. Around them, the room glowed with afternoon gold, the same color as the day she first dreamed of seeing. Outside, a crowd gathered in the courtyard for the Foundation's first anniversary celebration. When Elena stepped out onto the stage beside Adam, applause rose like thunder. Cameras flashed, but for once she was not afraid of them. "Thank you for believing that sight is more than vision," she told the crowd. "Today is not about me. It is about every person who dared to hope that darkness could end." Then she turned toward Adam, smiling. "And sometimes hope wears a white shirt and shows up late." The audience laughed gently. Adam took her hand. "I used to think light was something we chase," he said. "Now I know it is something we share." They stood together as the sun lowered behind the skyline. The light caught the silver of her ring and the curve of his smile. Maybe love does not erase the past. Maybe it just redeems it. What about you? Do you believe light can truly heal what darkness once claimed? Or does it only teach us how to see each other more clearly? Whatever your answer is, remember love is not sight. It is vision. And that vision begins the moment you choose to see.